Have you ever thought about how we learn how to fail or succeed in life? Well, mostly parents and school teaches us how to grasp at challenges or some kind of goals or milestones, and then we compare to that. But real life has nothing to do with that. So how do we actually learn? Well, either we learn that life is very different from an academic setting or a school setting where we have, a syllabus just meaning a plan, how you learn, which stuff to learn, when your grades are due, what assignments you need to do, either planned or unplanned, when your exam will be, final exam, midterm exam, what your research paper or seminar paper will be, what you need to do, in effect. But real life has none of that, and it has no mark on it. You cannot get a feedback from life that you succeeded at grasping something. And even when you look at the school level, at the school academic level, you're actually learning to get a grade. Most of the times, you're not learning to learn because you want to learn. Most of the times, you learn something that's outdated or actually unpractical, and you're learning because you want that grade. You want that pass grade, or you want a really good grade, or you want a certain average. But so the strategy is different. When I learned, and I have a PhD, an MBA, and a master's and a bachelor's degree, I first learned or researched the strategy about the exam itself. So I learned how the exam was actually formed, what the professor was looking or not looking in terms of knowledge. How was he posing his questions? Were they ABC questions? Were they multiple choice questions? Were they essay questions? Were they short essay questions? Were they write sentences or couple of sentence questions? Was it an oral exam? Was it a seminar paper that somebody read? No, these are all important questions when you want to succeed in an academic, in a school environment. But once you go past that, you see that nothing of that actually matters because there's no guide, there's no teacher, there's no, exam that can give you a feedback, a formal feedback, and say, you're doing great, you have an A plus, or you're doing bad, you failed, you have to repeat it. You just keep on doing it as much as you need at that moment. So learning in real life is quite different. And when you fail something in academic life or a school environment, it's something bad. You did something bad. And while most of the gurus on YouTube and social media say failing in real life is learning, it still feels bad. Not just because we were taught to feel bad about failing, flunking something, but it feels bad because you didn't succeed at all. You didn't win something. You lost. But then again, you can learn and you must learn from your mistakes because not reaching a goal that you set in life, not achieving something, means you need to tweak it. So I'll give you an example. When I was doing my online MBA, we had most of the time we had these papers and we had these exams, midterm and final exams. And then there was one specific exam, one specific subject that we had a simulation. And that simulation was about a business, how a company would behave, what it would do in terms of research, in terms of marketing, in terms of human resources, and in terms of selling and financing. So there are like 4 or 5 aspects of the company, which is kind of the cornerstone of the whole MBA degree. So what I noticed is my schoolmates were actually quite lost what to do because I was at the time running my own company and they were mostly just employees. They wanted to progress in their career, which is fine. But they had no actually aptitude how to deal with all their data. So naturally, I just played with the data. It was a business simulation. That means just a calculation in Excel, just presented a bit different. It was an application of the website. I think it was McPherson, and it was just differently, visually structured. But that doesn't mean it was just a projection. You had to tweak it. You had to see what the data said, the prerequisite points that were not shown were actually how the system behaved. And you could tweak it a little bit there, and you could see what the projections were. We had, I think, 5 practice rounds. In each practice round, you put in the data, you submitted it, and then the computer gave you results for the whole class. And then again, we did quite okay. We were kind of in the middle in terms of our class during the practice rounds. So, but what I noticed was my strategy wasn't off. I just noticed that there were some weird aspects of it. Some things mattered and other things mattered also, but the system was giving you really weird information, really weird feedback. So what I did is I some groups, some teams changed their strategy, which is what I thought was really stupid. You had 5 iterations, tests your hypothesis, and then after 5 iterations, they changed their theory. You didn't have time to learn. You had this 5 times to learn. And then when there were 3 main rounds, I just capitalized on that my theory which I tested. I just gained everything in. And what I found out that people were actually behaving irrationally. And you know that if you spend $100,000 on something, you need a specific type of return because that company borrowed the money. So if the interest rate is like 4 and the investment in the research and development or human resources or I don't know, the project line upgrades were less than 4% and about the actually declining, then you don't spend money on that. Simple as that. But people were just throwing money at it. So what I did is, of course, if you have a limited amount of money, you spend it on things that matter the most. What mattered the most? Well, money was quite expensive, so I tried to close with the excess cash, close some bad loans because I knew that the system was actually playing with the interest rate. Once it was high, what was low. And I invested in research and development because that was a good strategy, but I don't invested in a couple of things that matter the most. And I invested in the product line because I noticed that the system behaved actually a bit weird, a bit irrational in terms, because it was saying that there was a lot of demand and the production, so our production, because we are the production companies, were not getting enough items. So what I did is I increased the production. What happened? We were the first in that year, the first team in that year. We succeeded. We are the winners. But why? Because I followed the box mainly because I didn't look at it as what was interesting later was, however, that we had to grade each other. And I thought, well, then I was kind of getting 20 points for our team, for the team of 3. And I got the least points, so 3 or instead of 5. So both of my partners actually graded me low. And they were saying I didn't pay attention at one of our meetings because I was not taking written notes. I was just trying to, think out loud and, do some critical thinking. That's why I noticed 2 things. People are way too reliant on this academical way of thinking, and of course the motivation is somewhere else. It's not motivation of doing the best and rewarding the best. It's a motivation of how the networking works. So what does that tell me in life? The things we learn in academic or school life are actually damaging to us because we rely on that later in life and we think there's going to be this magic scoreboard where every time we push a button, an imaginary button, somebody's going to come and say, you're doing 43%, you could do better, or you're doing 65%, really great, or you're doing 75%, or you're doing 100%. But that's not how life works. That's not how we learn in life. There's no magic scoreboard. There's just hypothesis for which most of the time you have to go with really small amounts of data and profit on us. So you can, of course, have, a plan to go for that safe route of career development. You have to get an MBA, you have to progress, you have to upgrade your soft skills, you have to network. But if you want to be really, really successful, you're going to have to start thinking out of the box. Because most of the school thinking is actually too limiting, even in what it's taught. So there's not such thing in life. So if you want to be really successful, even as a normal career as an employee, you have to start thinking about how all the functions in the company work. Because when you rise to the C level or A level or B level, you have to start understanding how things work. That guy from the legal department is actually not just costing us money, not just complicating. He's helping us not to lose money. That guy in the accounting is helping us be, as a data function, helping us tell that although we think we're doing great, we're doing poorly. And that guy in the finance is actually, trying to get us a better deal in terms of a better interest rate that will, increase our profits for 20% or 5%. And that's huge. And that guy in the sales who does all the sales is actually doing a crappy job because he's selling to the wrong people. He's selling the low ticket items instead of high ticket items. So you have to see a broader picture when you want to raise through the ranks. And whoever understands the broader picture best, and whoever is intending to learn best in terms of real life, will benefit the most. So it's not that the one who does all the homework have to do the research, but there's no feedback loop. Your boss will not come to you and say, A plus, you did the homework. No, you have to go above and beyond. You have to think on yourself. You have to think on your feet. So real life is quite different from school environment. And I think real school environment is actually damaging to how we think and what skills we will use in the next 10 or 20 years time. So I think and I strongly believe that, schools were actually developed for our bureaucrats, for Prussian bureaucrats. It's the system. Even with all the upgrades that were happening in the last 50 years, even with all that, it didn't get any better because there's still not a hands-on approach. There's still no this outside of the box thinking, except for private schools. The public school system, the public school curriculum is just, learn this. There's an midterm exam on the 5th, and there's a final exam and that's it. Don't ask questions. If preferably, stick to it, learn it by heart, write it, and that's it. No critical thinking, no out of the box, no upgrading, nothing. Also no applying multiple aspects of the knowledge to it. That's not welcome because that, can of course damage the reputation of the teacher, and that's not good. Why it's not good? Because then people start asking questions and he or she has to admit that he doesn't know the answer, that they have perhaps to look it up, but he's the teacher, he has to know. It kind of damages his ego. And that's the core problem of the whole system. It's built on the teacher, it's built on the teacher knowing everything and the students being stupid and they have to be taught hard. So that's not going to help us. All the AI technology is going to damage most of the people, and those who ignore it will probably be better off. We already see that people are abandoning public schooling wherever they can afford it, and they were probably better off in life. And then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Those who are lower in society will get even lower, and those who are higher will get even higher. That's it all for me. Hope you liked it. If not, write a comment and say why you didn't like it.